been a hot minute since I've been on BookTube, and the reason why is because I just got really busy this week, as well as going to work and hanging out with my friends on the patio and enjoying the summer weather. It's been really hot and nice in Toronto, so that's why I always want to go out after work. But regardless, I still did a lot of reading, and that's why I wanted to make this video to talk about all the books that I finished reading. So these books are actually ARCs, and they are advanced reader copies, and I got them actually all these books that I've read this week has been ebooks because I don't own physical ARCs of them, which is like totally fine except for one, but I read ebooks instead. And so they're available to request on NetGalley or EDOS. I don't know how to say it, but like, yeah, you can request those books on there. And I'll try not to give too many spoilers, or I'll try to just like stick to the synopsis and tell you about my feelings towards the books, so you won't feel too spoiled when you do get a chance to read the books when they do come out. I know that a lot of my friends have pre-ordered these books or have them on their shelves for review. We'll try to contain ourselves so that we don't spoil things for everybody. So the first NetGalley book that I read is called Well Met, and it's by Jen DeLuca. I believe that's how you say her name. And for anybody who's not familiar with Well Met and the storyline, it's basically about this girl named Emily who goes back to a small town to help take care of her sister's daughter and her sister as well, after her sister and her daughter suffered through a car crash that left her sister immobile for a bit of time because she has a shattered leg. There she goes into the small town where she realizes that there's this Renaissance fair that happens every single year, and in order for her niece to volunteer at the Renaissance fair, she has to volunteer herself as well. So she gets thrown into this wench life where she is basically a bartender at the Renaissance fair. There she also meets the head organizer, who is called Simon, where it's enemies to lovers romance. And if you're a fan of those, you'll definitely love this one as well. You definitely like feel the hatred towards Simon because we're always reading from Emily's perspective, and you just kind of dislike Simon because he always seems so cold and he gives you like weird facial expressions. He says things that are too blunt, and then he just makes you upset. And then so you really get that push and pull effect, because sometimes he's like super nice and thoughtful, and then other times he's just like, what happened to the other guy? Like, you were so nice to me, why are you so mean to me now? And the book was a lot deeper than I thought it would be. It followed a plot that I thought it would be really shallow, but we learned the backstory of Emily and we learned the backstory of Simon, and that's when it got really emotional. And I felt myself that like I got too emotional, and I guess this week has been really emotional for me because I started crying for a lot of bits and pieces. Overall, the writing was pretty good and the storyline was good as well, and I gave it, I think, a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It just didn't meet my mark for a perfect 5 out of 5, but I'm sure that if you enjoy enemies to lovers romances, you'll definitely like this one as well. So the next book that I read is Faker by Sarah Smith. Now, if you guys follow me on Instagram, you would know that from my mini review that I didn't really like this book. I gave this book a 2 out of 5 stars, while a lot of my friends are being kind of generous and giving 3.5 out of 5 stars, or maybe 3 stars. I have one friend that totally DNF'd the book as well, so that's fair enough because I actually had to push myself to get through this one. This one is written from an Own Voices novel, I believe, so the author is Filipino, and so our character, I think she is Filipino-Hawaiian, so she's Filipino but she was born in Hawaii, and there's this really weird thing that's happening where she keeps mentioning the main male character's skin and how pale and white he is, and that's like the thing that kind of like triggered and upset a lot of people because they didn't understand why it's such a thing to like describe skin and to talk about skin. It's like that whole Twilight thing where like they kept describing Edward's skin to be glistening and like shining like diamonds, so it didn't really make sense. But regardless, the book is also an enemies to lovers romance. They both work in the same like nuts and bolts company where she does the copywriting and he does the social media and marketing. So it's really funny because he's not sociable at all, but he's in charge of all the social media. And then they have this really, really nasty relationship where they just can't stand to be with each other in the same room. And you could also feel the hate from the characters as well. So they get assigned to be on the same project, and they are trying to work hard together without killing each other. But along the way, like something happens and then they get thrown together and they start developing feelings for each other. So what I did say to my friends about this book is that I felt like that this book barely had a plot. Like I think it had events that happened between the characters and it made you feel things. Like I felt there is a level of intimacy in the book that I like to read in romances. But besides that, there was just nothing that was happening. The conflict in the end didn't make sense at all. It kind of like went really straight downhill towards the end where I was like, why is this happening? This doesn't make sense. What? So yeah, that's why I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. I pre-ordered this copy from my bookstore and I think I'm just going to have to return it once it arrives. So the next book that I read is Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey, and now I know that like a lot of people are like, how did you get this book? Like the Fix Her Up just came out like literally last month. The arcs are already available. So I requested this on Edelweiss and I got sent the copy so I get to read it, and I read it in one day because I was like, oh my god, this is like everything I wanted. Like I have to read it right. So this follows the story of Rosie and Dominic from Fix Her Up, and if you read Fix Her Up, you would know from that story that Rosie and Dominic are kind of side characters who are having some trouble and difficulty in their marriage. So Dominic is an ex-Marine, or he's an ex-Army officer or something like that. So he's from the military, but he came back to work on a construction site. And he's going through some stuff. You could tell because he kind of shut himself down. He doesn't talk to his wife anymore, and that's like the main problem that Rosie is having. They don't talk. All they do is just be intimate with each other, and that's it. So she's not having it, and she kind of gives this ultimatum that they're gonna like divorce, like they're gonna break it up. And obviously Dominic doesn't want that because Dominic thinks that Rosie is the love of his life and he doesn't want to let her go. So they go through this like whole story of how to fix their problems, to get together again and to rekindle their romance and rekindle their love and hopefully open up to each other more. They even go to couple counseling and it's really emotional once again. I find that. So I read 2 enemies to lover romances, and I also read 2 romances that features a divorce breaking down, and I find that romances with divorces breaking down are more emotional than a regular romance, simply because it's sad to see how 2 characters really loved each other and then they are suddenly going through this situation where they're falling out of love with each other, or one person is trying to desperately hold on to the other person. So this book definitely made me cry a lot of times. I think like 30% in, I was already crying because I was like, this is too emotional. I feel so bad for the characters because they just don't want to say what's on their minds because they're too afraid of what the other person thinks. It's like situations like that. But the book was excellent. I really liked how the author dealt with the issues involved, and I liked how she also gave 2 perspectives to the characters. So I wasn't just reading how Rosie just wants out, I was also reading about how Dominic was feeling about the relationship, and I realized that like there are a lot of things to learn in a relationship and a marriage, and this book taught a lot how to deal with it. So the next book that I read is Playboy Pilot by V. Kyland and Penelope Ward. Now I have a love-hate relationship with these dual authors because I find that like some of their books are like really good and really juicy and really trashy, but then other books are just like way too out there and like I don't relate to them at all. So Playboy Pilot started off with our main character, and I forgot her name already, and I don't really care because so she spills something on her shirt and he does this noble thing where he takes soda water and proceeds to dump it all over her chest to get rid of the stain, and he realizes that she's not wearing a bra and her boobs are now on display through her transparent wet white t-shirt. So this scene already kind of like set up like my expectations for the rest of the book, that I knew that I shouldn't take this book too seriously and I shouldn't you know, be critiquing it too hard and like just, you know, reading it as a joke. But the more and more I listened to the audiobook, the more and more frustrated I got because the plot line was just like unbelievable. Like I was just like, wow, what is the point? Like so much things happened and so little things happened all at once. Like it was just literally a conundrum and I was like shooketh. But anyways, I didn't enjoy the book to say the least, and I'm probably gonna give it a 2 out of 5 stars on my Goodreads. And you know, like I like their book Hate Notes, you know, the Montlake romance that came out I think last year, but this one I'm just like and I don't think I'm gonna go back and read their backlist titles because it's just like, why put myself through stuff like that, you know? So the last romance novel that I read is the Bromance book club by Lyssa Kay Adams, and this is also another book that you've been seeing everywhere on Instagram as well. I find that Berkeley Romance does a really great at promoting their titles through social media because they send out like a lot of arcs and then they send out a lot of e-arcs so that a lot of readers can cover it and can read it as well. So that's how I knew about it and that's how I got my arc as well. So this book follows the same plotline story of how Tessa Bailey's Love Her or Lose Her goes. It's also about a marriage breakdown. We have a really pro baseball player who suddenly finds himself as shocked when his wife wants to leave him. And they kind of had like a shotgun wedding because they were dating at a time for a very few short months when she fell pregnant and she gave birth to twins of his. And he claims that it was love at first sight, so it's very cute because you can clearly kind of tell that he's fighting his every last move and doing it the best he can to win her back because he clearly does love her. He just can't explain himself because he's such a dude, and she's just like in the dark about it. Like she doesn't know anything about his feelings. Like they don't communicate feelings, they don't communicate anything, and that's why she wants out because she thinks that he doesn't care about her and she thinks that he doesn't understand her at all. So the whole premise of this book is that he wants her back and he enlists his friends' help to help him win her back by joining a book club. So the book club, it focuses on romance novels, and every member of the book club kind of went through a breakup or a stage where they were left behind by their significant other, and they won them back and seduced them back through the help of romance novels. And it's really cute. It's a really cute idea and it's a really cute story to read. And Lyssa Kay Adams does a really great job at talking about how romance books are not just romance books, and they're empowering and they're so important to a woman's life and things like that. Overall, the story was really entertaining and great. So I just like had a really difficult time with our main characters and how they dealt with things. So Thea is our main female character. She's the wife of Gavin, the baseball player. And I didn't like how Thea kept pushing Gavin away. I understand her backstory and why she does that and why she doesn't believe in love and why doesn't she trust Gavin, a pro baseball player who's like super hot and also like, you know, he kind of looks like a player. So I get that, but also it's just frustrating to read because it's a marriage. You know, it takes two to tangle. You two should work together to save it, and it's not just his fault kind of thing. And I didn't really like how the story played out towards the end, and that's why I had to take like 2 stars off my 5-star rating and give it only a 3 out of 5. I would still recommend the book to you because it's a great book, it's entertaining, and maybe you'll like it more than I liked it and how it played out as well. I think it's just like a total personal preference kind of thing, so you know, don't be too discouraged. Anyways, that concludes all the books that I read this week, and it was a good reading week. I wanted to read more, like I wanted to start on more arcs. Right now I'm currently reading Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I think that's what the book is called, but I'll put the cover up here anyways, just so you know what I'm talking about. I've seen this book around on Instagram, but it hasn't been as hyped as like the Berkeley romances, but I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna tell you guys what I think about it later on, either through my Instagram stories or on my Goodreads reviews, and I'm excited for it. I got a lot of arcs that I downloaded from Edelweiss. I don't know how you say that platform name, but I got a lot of arcs from there, and I'm trying to get through them as much as I can because there are titles that I'm really excited about, and I'll give you more updates if you guys enjoy listening to me ramble on and on about them, even though I'm not giving you much about them as well, because I don't want you to be spoiled. How do you YouTube? I don't know. Okay, so I'll see you next time.
Can't let you go. I can't let you go. No. 우리 운명적 I'm gonna get you.